busting spooks with new recruits. Here's your look at the new Hasbro Ghostbusters Plasma Series podcast. Sure, he calls himself Podcast. Sure, he has a podcast, but don't box him in. He also likes gadgets and battling with mini puffs. Before we get a closer look at Podcast, I'd like to thank the folks over at Hasbro that provided samples of the brand new Plasma series leading up to the release of Ghostbusters Afterlife. They were kind enough to send over all but one of the Plasma series figures. That was Lucky. I ended up having to pick up Lucky separately. But of course, through all the reviews that we're going to be looking at in upcoming videos, we're going to be building the Sentinel Terror Dog. Before we get ahead of ourselves, though, how about some size comparisons? And we, of course, don't have other figures to compare along with Podcast yet, at least from the Ghostbusters Afterlife. But we do have other Plasma series figures that we can bring in, say the likes of Raised Hands, say the likes of Egon Spangler. This is from the first wave of Plasma series figures. I've done reviews on all of them if you'd like to check them out. And it kind of gives you at least an idea of what the newer Plasma series, more importantly, what Podcast looks like compared with the first wave of figures that we got before. Might as well look at the Build-A-Figure piece first. Now, the Build-A-Figure in this wave is going to be the Sentinel Terror Dog. Being the fact, of course, that Ghostbusters Afterlife hasn't been released yet, we're not really sure to what extent, what is the Sentinel Terror Dog? How does it connect to the original Terror Dogs from the original Ghostbusters film? These are all unanswered questions. Certainly is an unanswered, unfinished Terror Dog, because right now all we have to really to work with is a torso piece. The torso has somewhat of a similar Terror Dog color, kind of this really dark, almost purplish gray. There's a little bit of silver, interestingly, on the back of the figure. And then down below, no, not that little square. I'm not even sure why that little square shape is there in the first place. But it's rather interesting, like the bottom half of it is sort of a translucent purple plastic that transitions into the more darker color. They likely have molded all of it in this purple plastic and then just painted the rest of it here to give you that more opaque or solid colored shape. Like I said, we still have to attach the arms, still have to attach the legs, and of course we still have to attach the head. So there's a fair bit still to go through, but this is what we sort of have to start to work with. Going to put this, though, to the side for the time being, and again, we'll add on to that as we have a look at all the other Plasma series figures. Okay, so let's have a look at the accessories that actually come packaged along with Podcast. Podcast comes included, first of all, with a little remote control. I wonder if this remote control has anything to do with, I think Lucky is packed along with the Ghost Trap, that little Ghost Trap drone that drives around that we see so far in the trailer. Again, years from now, everybody's going to know the answers to it because we don't know what Ghostbusters Afterlife is really going to happen, or what's going to happen in the movie. So far, we're sort of just guessing more than anything else. It's an interesting looking little control pad, and I'm guessing it is for that Ghost Trap drone. I could be 100% wrong, though, but that's what I'm going to go with for the time being. You can fit it into Podcast's hands, or again, you can just put it to the side for the time being. He also comes included with ecto goggles. Now, the interesting thing about the ecto goggles is they seem to be the same shape, the ones that came included with, I think Ray came packed with these ecto goggles initially. They made of softer plastic with a nice little bit of additional silver paint on the front of it for the actual goggle portion, the actual lenses here. The thing about it, though, is it doesn't really fit onto Podcast's head very well at all. You really have to stretch it across what I feel is a much larger head on the figure to get the goggles in place. And it just seems like there's a lot of a struggle. It's too large of a head, if you ask me, to actually fit the goggles. Now, I have to wonder if all the figures are going to come with accessories that are kind of intended for the broader picture. So while they're not necessarily intended for Podcast, he comes included with ecto goggles that you could then use for another figure, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like it really fits his head properly. Like I don't want to stretch it because I certainly don't want to break this, and don't want to rub the paint on the head either. So I'm going to leave these off for the time being and just assume that these are going to be intended for other figures. Again, you can mix and match these. He also comes included with this little tiny skull ornament. It's so small, I was worried, first of all, that I was going to lose it. There's a little fibrous hair right by its eyeball. There we go. I was worried I was going to lose this. There is a peg located on the back of it that attaches to the belt. At least that's what I'm assuming it's supposed to go to. It fits right into that hole. And again, at least attached to the side of Podcast's belt, so at least he's not going to lose it. Or I'm not going to lose it, the guy that's worrying behind the camera right now. I think what I'll do is just give you quickly a look at it before we go ahead and just... I'm going to put it just to the side for the fear that I'm going to drop it. The figure also comes included with at least one of them, these little tiny mini puffs. Now, based solely, again, on the trailer, we've seen these little mini puffs in the store shelves. You see more of them, but there's only one of them that comes packaged along with this figure. It doesn't really serve a purpose other than just being a side accompanying accessory that could be displayed along with the figure. And then you get this marshmallow kind of ooze that you can attach along with the figure. One of them I know where it goes. That's pretty straightforward. Before we do that, I actually want to show you guys. I hope you're able to see it. But amongst the stuff, it actually looks like stuff. If anybody has seen that movie, The Stuff, can't get enough. You can actually see that there's little tiny mini puffs amongst the clouds of, well, again, marshmallow fluff here. That's kind of interesting the way that they've sculpted those in there. Now, this just fits around the torso of Podcast, and I'm guessing as well you could really take this and fit this around other torsos also. And there is a peg that fits right into the back, so you can plug that in. Not that it necessarily needs it. I mean, it would just stay fine on the figure's body anyways. You don't have to necessarily attach it, but there seems to be definitely an attaching point, and it sort of just runs to the side, like a side sash of marshmallow. I wouldn't mind a side sash of marshmallow. And then the last thing it comes included with is, again, like this little additional marshmallow piece that for the life of me, I can't figure out where it's supposed to go. I thought, first of all, it may have fit around the arm, but it's way too small. At least the opening of it seems way too small. I thought it would have maybe fit around his armband, for example. It certainly can't fit unless you fit it around his feet. I'm not really sure whereabouts it's supposed to go. Unless you're supposed to take the figure's head sculpt off, remove it from the ball peg, and unless it's supposed to go onto the neck area like this, and then you're supposed to put the head on top of it. But that doesn't look right either, and it looks like he's got like a necklace of marshmallow. No idea really where that's supposed to go. So we're just going to go ahead and put the head sculpt back in place for the time being. It's a little harder, of course, now to get that ball joint back into place. Just wiggle it back onto the neck. Wiggle it back onto the neck. Did I get it all the way? Hold on one second. Whew. Took a lot more work than I thought it would take. But needless to say, at least the head is back on the body where it belongs, and we get a closer look at Podcast. Notably, the smallest so far of the Plasma series figures that we've gotten so far. Funny enough that that's the first figure I decide to have a look at. It's only because we had to look at the torso. It's kind of been the first thing I always like to add the limbs back onto the torso as sort of the way that we go through the steps of looking through a line. That we can kind of build the terror dog on the side. Anyways, though, looking at the costume, though, there's no way that this would be Louis Tully's costume, even when you compare it, say, to the likes of Egon Spangler. It's too small of a costume to believe that they would have just found this in Egon's closet somewhere, that they probably would have had to make the suits from scratch. You can also see as well they're a darker color than the original Plasma series costumes. Much more of that darker beige. Also indicators as well that they may have made these costumes. Well, there's the No Ghost logo on the side as a patch. You can see that there's a name patch, though, on the front that either has stitch lines, like they would have sewn that in, or they drew those in. I'm guessing it's probably more so that they stitched those on themselves. There is a lot of beige plastic happening here, head to toe, with only the little bit of relief being in the hands, the patch, the name patch. This weird peg that sticks out the side of his leg, I'm not sure what that's for, and of course his footwear. Going back to this peg, I thought first of all it may have had something to do with the remote control, that maybe I would spin this around and there'd be a hole in the back of the remote. It's not the case. Then I thought maybe it may have been there for the ecto goggles. And yeah, I guess you could rest the ecto goggles onto the hole, onto that peg, but it's just barely going to stay in place. Maybe it may serve down the road that when we look at the rest of the Plasma series figures, again, going back to the idea that they have mixing and matching accessories, there may be like a ghost trap that may be able to peg onto the side of that leg. Because again, right now, it looks strange and out of place that he's got this big peg sticking out from the side of his leg. Again, a lot of this dark beige plastic, but it's a nice sculpted body, both the torso and the lower legs. It has like the draping, not draping like it's an overly baggy costume. It seems to, again, be fitted to his sized frame. Head sculpt, what little have we even seen Podcast yet in the trailers? I feel like maybe just a small glimpse of it. I said small glimpse of it. It's a good looking head sculpt from what little we know of the characters so far. I'm sure we'll have more of a fonder attachment to all these characters once Ghostbusters Afterlife actually has hit theaters, that most people then would be like, okay, I want to pick up a Podcast figure. But like right now, we're sort of not in the know. I'm sure we'll be in the know soon enough. For the figure's articulation, the head rotates all the way around, hinges up, and it hinges down. Even though he is a smaller sized figure, all the articulation is going to be pretty much the same as the regular sized first wave Plasma Series figures we looked at. So like the arms do hinge out. You can rotate those arms all the way around. Single hinge in the elbow still allows the forearm to rotate back and forth. You can rotate the hand also back and forth. Upper torso is on a ball joint. I like also the way that they've sculpted the bottom or the under suit. So even though you're rotating on top of it, there's no weird awkward gap right here where there's unmolded plastic. At least it continues the trend of having a sculpt underneath it. Legs split out. You can bring the legs forward and back. There's a swivel 3/4 of the way up the thigh. You can rotate the legs all the way around. Double hinge on the knee. And then when it comes to his fancy footwear, good for running, of course, the feet move back and forth ever so slightly, and you can somewhat move them. Very little wiggle space to work with. But there's Podcast. Nice looking figure. It's always hard to get into a toy line before a movie comes out because you're sort of going in not really knowing anything about the characters at all. All I can really tell you is based on the character alone, he is certainly one of the smallest, once again, bringing back in Egon Spangler. I really like these first wave Plasma Series figures. We're also going to be getting, I think, slime-covered versions of these characters as well. But yeah, Podcast definitely, as you can see, is the smallest of the lot so far. And he also was the first figure that we had to look at primarily more so just because we had to add on the torso, well, add the pieces onto the torso as we continue the build of the Sentinel Terror Dog. If I may draw your attention to the back of the packaging here. No, not the top of the packaging. That actually looks like it got ripped open by a terror dog. It was just, it was just a lot of tape. Just a lot of tape. What I wanted to draw your attention, though, to is that this wave of Plasma Series have 6 figures. The first 3 are characters introduced in the Ghostbusters Afterlife film. And then the latter, 4, 5, and 6, are aged Peter, Ray, and Winston. The veterans coming back to pass the proverbial proton stream to the new generation of Ghostbusters. But you do need all 6 to build the Sentinel Terror Dog. Why is the Sentinel Terror Dog walking on its hind legs like a man? Again, answers to those questions will be answered, of course, in the brand new Ghostbusters Afterlife. I will tell you, though, from looking at just the Podcast figure alone, it's strange that some of the accessories that come included with the figure don't really feel like they belong with the figure. So I have to believe that the accessories are sort of something that's shared across the board. While they may not fit Podcast necessarily, maybe the Ecto goggles are designed for Lucky, and maybe some of the accessories that come with the Trevor and Lucky are going to be something that attaches maybe to the side of leg of Podcast, because he's got this, again, this weird awkward peg that sticks out from his leg that doesn't seem to serve a purpose yet. But like how those answers are going to be provided when Ghostbusters Afterlife come out, maybe as we look at the rest of the new Plasma Series from Hasbro, those questions will also be answered with other reviews. Certainly other reviews that are going to be coming to this channel. Again, a big thank you to the folks over at Hasbro that not only provided Podcast, but the rest of the Plasma Series. Well, that's actually not true. Most of the figures Hasbro provided. The only figure that they didn't actually pack in that Ghostbusters unboxing that we did was Lucky. Sort of ironic, the fact that the character's name was Lucky, and I was unlucky not to get that one, but I ended up picking her up separately. So, of course, we're going to be having a look at all 6 figures in upcoming reviews and building the very awkwardly standing Sentinel dog that's standing on its hind legs. Again, I don't even know. Answers will be provided, I'm sure. Again, once again, big thank you to the folks over at Hasbro that provided the samples of the new Plasma Series, which should be available right now online and in retail stores if you're looking to pick these up for yourself. Hey now, are you a standing terror dog? If you are, and you're enjoying the content you're seeing here on this channel, you can do a couple of things. No, not rip apart the packaging. I'm more than confident enough I can do that on my own. But no, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you turn on the bell notification and make sure that, yes, you're coming back. Well, we have finished the review of Podcast. Trevor, Lucky, Peter, Ray, and Winston, the ragtag bunch of Ghostbusters, will all be coming up in some upcoming reviews. So make sure you keep your peepers peeled for those. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.